Ever feel like the resources and advice out there for women are missing something essential? I thought so too, which is why more than 6 years ago, I created She Said, She Said. I'm Laura Cox Kaplan, and after 3 decades in communications and then advocacy, and now juggling motherhood and entrepreneurship, trust me, friend, I get it. Making a real impact takes more than just passion. It takes the right mindset, the right skills, the right investments, and the right community. On this show, we dive deep with incredible women from all walks of life who have been there. We uncover the secrets to building influence, navigating tricky relationships, and staying true to ourselves even when it's tough. And let's face it, it often is. I also throw in my own favorite productivity and life hacks, things that have shifted my perspective and might help you too. Wherever you are in your journey, my goal here is to leave you inspired to define success your way and to help you build the confidence you need to tackle your biggest goals. Subscribe today and let's unlock your full potential, your confidence, and your greatest influence. Hey friend, welcome to She Said, She Said podcast. I'm your host, Laura Cox Kaplan, and I am really delighted to bring you today's conversation, which is a continuation of our special She Said, She Said podcast, the Southern Sea Collaboration Series. So I am really excited to bring you some amazing additional voices that are from the Southern Sea Network. So I think you're going to love this conversation today. But before we dive in, I do want to remind you about our special partnership with ericjavits.com. If you're looking for the perfect summer hat or even summer accessories, they have some really, really darling summer tote bags. You can use promo code She Said at checkout to get 20%, a full 20% off of your order. It is a great deal, and it's a great time to update your summer wardrobe with their incredible collection. And of course, remember, Mother's Day is right around the corner, so it's also a great chance to pick up something fun for your mom or for yourself, or to put it on your own wish list potentially. Be sure, again, to go to ericjavits.com and enter the promo code She Said for a full 20% off. Now, on to today's conversation. We're going to be talking about innovation and collaboration and really the power of reimagining a legacy business for the modern era. My guest today is the fabulous Alexandra Dillard Lucie. She is a transformative force in retail management and in merchandising. As the corporate merchandise manager for Dillard's Inc., she's bringing fresh perspective to a family business that was started by her grandfather, and she's helping to really redefine the department store experience for today's shopper, while at the same time creating some amazing exclusive products that have really catapulted the store's annual sales. But what makes Alexandra's story, I think, so compelling is how she's breathed new life into an established brand. That can be really difficult when you're working with an established company. And certainly there's some interesting dynamics when it's a family business. So today we're going to explore Alexandra's approach to innovation, how she balances that tradition I talked about before with transformation, and what it takes to build successful designer collaborations and partnerships with other types of collaborative partners that will resonate with a modern customer. We'll also discuss leadership lessons that she's learned in her journey and also her vision for the future of retail. So, whether you're looking to maybe innovate within an established organization, or you're curious about retail transformation, or maybe you're just interested in how effective collaboration can drive extraordinary results, I think you're going to find so much valuable insight in today's conversation. So, without delay, let's dive in with Alexandra Dillard Lucie. This is episode 328 of She Said, She Said podcast. Enjoy. Alexandra, welcome to She Said, She Said.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I'm delighted to have you. And as you know, this conversation is part of our continuing She Said, She Said podcast, the Southern Sea Collaboration Series. And so it's really fun to welcome you here and have a chance to reconnect after the summit. So thanks for being here today.
Well, I'm honored. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you about all the amazing things that are happening at Dillard's. Dillard's, as you and I were talking about before I hit the record button, is near and dear to my heart. It was my home department store in Abilene, Texas, many, many years ago. So, for those who are listening who might not be as familiar with Dillard's, tell us a little bit about the history of the company and store.
Sure. Dillard's was founded in 1938 by my grandfather in a small town of Nashville, Arkansas, which happens to be where my grandmother was from. From there, he opened numerous stores throughout Texas and Arkansas and Oklahoma, and just kind of continued to expand and grow to where we are today, which we have nearly 250 stores. It kind of vacillates and changes based on openings and closings. But yeah, it was founded in a tiny town in Arkansas, and a lot of our roots, like you mentioned in Abilene, it's one of our older stores too. But a lot of our roots are in Texas and sort of that central part of the U.S.
Was it a foregone conclusion that you would join the company when you decided to launch your career?
So I always knew that I wanted to work in the fashion and retail space in some capacity. You know, we grew up next door to my grandparents, so we were over there every night. Every conversation that we had after school, after dinner was always about work. And so it was kind of ingrained in me in a very young age. Also, my mother was a buyer for Neiman Marcus for many years. So I think my sisters and I always knew we wanted to be involved in the industry in some way, but I didn't know I always wanted to work for Dillard's. I had lots of internships in a variety of places and for many different vendors that we work with. So I didn't know I was always going to come back. I will say it's the greatest blessing in my life to be able to work with my family and to watch my father and my uncle lead our company. And I feel very blessed to work for my family, but I wasn't always certain I was going to be at Dillard's.
You know, working in a family business, I would think, has some interesting dimensions. You can't just quit and go away and never see these people again. This is your family. So
Even if sometimes you think you may want to, very rarely, but no.
maybe talk a little bit about what makes kind of
Yeah.
the dynamics of a family business a little different than what you might encounter in another type of organization.
Um, so first of all, I feel like there's the blurred line between like personal
Mm,
and work, and it's always
mhm.
combined. Even any phone call I have with anyone in my family, we very quickly jostle between what's happening in our personal lives to right back to business and then so on and so forth. And that was even the case when I was growing up next door to my grandparents. So it's always been intertwined. And I love that about our business and our family that we can talk constantly about so many different topics, things that are happening in the world that affect our business, things that are happening in the world that may not affect our business, but everything is kind of very circular, and I love that. Um, like I was saying, I feel very grateful to be underneath the wing of my father still and watching him and the decision making that he pursues within our company because the difference that I see between the decisions that we make that are always really what's best interest for Dillard's long term versus what a more typical hired CEO might be thinking. Um, in the immediacy, it's very different. And I love that. And I'm very grateful for it. They're very steadfast leaders. We've been through many crises. I'm always very impressed with the resilience and the calmness in which they have approached every single hurdle that we've encountered. I think that keeps the rest of us calm and the rest of us focused on finding the
Mhm.
solutions and not never throwing our hands up or having a meltdown. Like there's just constantly roadblocks that come up. And I feel like that's really the only way you can get that kind of leadership is from somebody who's looking to the future for many generations to come in the decision making. And that makes me very happy and grateful. And I feel like the luckiest person in the world to be able to see that leadership so close hand.
You know, it occurs to me too that with a business that's been around for such a long time, it can be challenging to innovate within the sort of cultural confines that kind of grow up. And yet there's so much volatility happening in the retail space right now. You are being celebrated for some amazing innovation that you have taken on as part of your role, and I want you to talk a bit, specifically about what you do for the company. But I also want you to talk about how you're embracing innovation in a really cool and interesting way.
I'll start off by saying I read a great quote in a book the other day that said, if you rest, you rust.
Love
And I
that.
really think that was a great quote because I believe that wholeheartedly that you have to keep moving all the time. And in our industry, parameters change constantly. The goalpost continues to move. And I am so honored and feel so grateful when someone congratulates me on our success or on some of the new initiatives that we've launched. And I always take it with a grain of salt. And I feel like I'm never as gracious as I should be about those compliments because I always think to myself,
Yes.
but now we have to go so much further because once you set a bar, you got to
Yeah.
be higher. And that's a lot of pressure. I love it. I think it's one of the greatest things about our job is the constant strategy shifts that are involved in staying in the game and ahead of the game. So one of my favorite things about my role has been launching new businesses and creating completely new concepts for our store, whether that's developing new brands or partnerships or bringing in new brands to the store. It's one of my very favorite things. And I'm constantly trying to evaluate what's not being done in the market, what's not being done well, what's not being done at all, how can we approach our offering in a way that differentiates us from our competition, what can we do to really set ourselves apart and set ourselves above the rest. So, there's so many different avenues, and I can highlight several of those that I'm very proud of as of recently. And one of them is the Coterie Shop. And you're representing the Southern Sea, which, they were part of what inspired us for the creation of this department. The Coterie Shop is a conglomerate of many smaller designers that either have never wholesaled their line whatsoever or have never worked with a major department store within the wholesale landscape. And we looked all over the country, all over the world, in fact, because many of our designers are international, trying to find really interesting design talent and saying who is doing something really fresh, really exciting, and really new that maybe everyone hasn't heard of yet. They're more on the up and coming. They're small but mighty. They've got great ideas, but they don't kind of know how to operate under this bigger landscape. And we decided to kind of recruit these brands to work with us and have put them in what I kind of think of as an incubation room where we nurture them, we watch them very closely. We have our teams are very involved in trying to make sure that we're doing things delicately with them, helping advise them when they need help with advice, even if it's sourcing help, whatever that might be. We're really helping to grow and nurture their businesses so that we can expand them within our stores and even their own presence in their own space. So that has been a department I'm very excited about, which I love. And we have 6 designers right now that are contributing to that shop. Morgan from Vuru, who we all love.
Yes.
We have Molly from Crosby by Molly Birch. She's based here in Atlanta, which is where I live.
Uh-huh.
We also have Abby Glass, who's based in Atlanta. And we have Famon, which I love. That is a Haitian designer who is actually living in Istanbul.
Yeah, she's been on the podcast
Oh,
too.
she's great.
Several of those amazing designers.
And then we launched 2 new brands this year. One is called Momaya, and the designer is out of Singapore. And then we also launched a second brand called Damaris Bailey, which I love, and her line is just, like, personally one of my favorites 'cause it's so me, her style has always been, and I've admired her for years. So, we're continuing to look for new and interesting designers that are popping up, trying to work with them and get their exciting products in Dillard's exclusively. So, we've loved the Coterie Shop. That has been absolutely fantastic, and when we're also evaluating these brands, we're looking to make sure that the values align with our company, that we kind of feel like each one of these talents, they're going in a similar direction to where we are and who we want to be. That they're very focused on originality and all those great things. And then some other concepts that we've launched recently are influencer collaborations, which have been amazing. I feel like that's what people bring up to me more than they bring anything in the entire world up is your collaborations are incredible. And some people think that's my only job at Dillard's because it's very easy for me to repost the things that happen there because the content is just so fantastic. But we started doing these influencer collaborations right kind of we launched them right during COVID actually. And the thought process behind them was, let's try to bring in some interesting influencer, tastemaker, prominent type gals within their community and let them design a line for Dillard's. The dream is find somebody whose a dream has always been to have their own line. And we will put the parts together necessary to do that because raising funding and capital is scary and owning inventory is very scary. And then finding someone to buy it is even scarier. So we take all the fear out of it. We're hiring them really on a design basis to help collaborate with us on this project whatever that looks like and whichever brand that's with. and we launched that during COVID. I knew it would be successful within the regions where each one of the influencers are based, for obvious reasons. They have friends and family that were willing to support them. But I wasn't expecting the national and even the international success that came with it. And our collaborations have really exploded. I just drove back actually this morning from Birmingham, where we are launching MG Styles collection. They're so exciting and full of life, and I love meeting the customers and the stories that they tell me about their experiences with Dillard's, or in Birmingham, how desperately they would like a Dillard's, which we would agree. Um, I just really take so much enjoyment from hearing about that from them. And then we've launched other things, like right now we're launching something called the Style Lounge, which is really our attempt to revolutionize a very tired area within our store and in the market, the juniors area, which is targeting kind of the teen to the college girl. Um, with fast fashion
Yeah.
becoming so much less, exciting. I don't know how to say that, but it's a little.
Right. Well, it's kind of fallen out of favor, right? Because I think teens and tweens and their parents are, less inclined to
They
purchase
are.
fast fashion, or at least maybe are asking that question about, is this really a good idea from a sustainability standpoint, right?
Exactly. I think people are just a lot less interested in disposable. I think they're way more interested in buying things they can get a lot of use out of. And so, anyway, the Style Lounge for us is a department we're really focusing on finding the hottest brands in the market, giving them to our customers in an environment that feels really exciting and cool. We're kind of revamping and redecorating these portions of the stores. We're putting these personal stylists that are also sort of in their own right, mini influencers too, in to help them work with their closets and keep all their product feeling really fresh and relevant. And that's something we're doing, we're super excited about. So I would say every year we're launching 50 to 100 new initiatives,
Mhm.
whether it's an intensification or whether it's an entirely new brand or new department. So we're on the move constantly, and we're always evaluating what could be, what could things look like, how could they be done better. And that is definitely my favorite part of my role. And then obviously I manage many vendors within Dillard's and our private label brands that have been around for decades. I mean, longer than I've even been a part of Dillard's. So it's an all-consuming job, and I oversee the majority of the buying for
Mm.
women's, children's, and juniors. So it's a lot of work. There's a lot of vendors. There's a lot of movement constantly, but I love it. My favorite part is definitely the strategy.
How exciting. That's just incredible. And it's so exciting to see something that is such an established brand be willing to push the envelope in some of these directions that really keeps it fresh, makes it more relevant and accessible for your customer. So it's really an exciting time.
But it does circle back to being a family-led company, and the fact that we don't have tremendous layers in our organization that prohibit movement quickly. If we wanna do something, if we think of it and we put together a strong proposal, we can get it approved very quickly, so we move fast at Dillard's. There's not a lot of layers and red tape that we have to get through to do new and exciting things, and I'm very grateful for that, and I do think it also has to do
Mm.
with our leadership being so streamlined and that we don't have to jump through a million hoops to get something accomplished.
Let's talk a little bit about maybe advice for the listener for going into collaborations or partnerships. I mean, you mentioned some of the attributes that you look for, but maybe some specific tactical advice for
Sure.
how to think about those collaborations, how to think about those partnerships.
So, one thing and why I think a big secret to our success is that we really focused on authenticity. And when we are working on a collaboration, and I would advise any influencer or tastemaker that's considering a collaboration, an artist, whoever that is to make sure that when you're entering into a collaboration, it's authentic to you and that it really represents you completely, that you feel complete ownership over the process, that you feel that the product or whatever service or whatever that looks like that you're coming up with is something you love, you're proud of, you want to wear, you want to own, you want to provide. Because I often see the collaborations that aren't quite as successful as the ones that we've done. The problem tends to be more so that someone is saying, let me put your name on something I already do. But it's not actually something you love or you like or that you would want. And I think the customer sees that very, very clearly. I think the consumer is very dialed into what is authentic, and she wants what feels the most real. So, within our collaborations and partnerships, we're very careful never to take over the autonomy of any of the partners that we work with. We don't want them to appear as a Dillard's employee or, that this is a Dillard's line that they're just promoting. This isn't a marketing scheme. It really is about finding great product. And I would advise anyone that wants to go into a partnership with somebody to make sure it's something you're actually passionate about. The money may be enticing, maybe somebody's offering you a really great deal. But if you don't love the product and it's not you and it doesn't feel like you, I would walk away.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Um, let's talk a bit about how you go about measuring success, which maybe sounds like a silly question because obviously dollars and cents is one measurement of success, but it's not the only measurement of success. And oftentimes it's not the best measurement of long term success. So maybe talk a little bit about how you measure the success of these different partnerships and collaborations and these new innovations that you're embracing.
Such a good question because it's true. Success comes in many different forms, and it can take sometimes many years for us to get a business in a position where we can say, okay, the gross margin is where we need it, or, the sales volume is really where we ultimately want it. It can take many years to get there. Um, I will tell you that even if something doesn't work, even when I see it on the markdown rack and it didn't sell, if I still find that we took a risk and I'm proud of the way it looked, I'm still happy. I still feel it was the right move because we took a chance, we threw for the touchdown, we didn't play defense. And if I look at that product, even if it didn't resonate with people, I say we did the right thing though because we tried something new. And if you don't try to score, you're never going to. Like the
Absolutely.
defense doesn't win the game. You can only be so conservative and so careful and so spot on with the inventory you're selecting. If you don't try new things, you'll never win. So for me, success is measured by the pride I take in the product at the end of the day. If I think, we did the right thing, sometimes we're ahead of ourselves. Sometimes we have to stick with it a little longer and we're a little quick to the game. But to me, I always want to make sure, did it check the boxes? Did we try something new? Do we think there was a customer in mind for this product that we were pursuing or this category or this strategy? Was there a real customer there? We look back and say, what could we have done differently? Is there something that did the customer just not know we had it? Because sometimes that happens. I mean, with as big as our store is, sometimes people just don't see the product.
Hmm.
How could we do a better job exposing her to that? How can we find a way to get people talking about what's in Dillard's and what we have and the great selections that we offer? So to me, success is, am I proud of what we did and what we tried? Um, do I think there was a solid target audience behind this? Are there changes that I can make to um, try it again and make sure that it comes out more successful the next time? And, like continuing to kind of challenge the norm and say, if it was something I really felt, was a hole in an opening, I'm still prideful of that, and I still find it to be successful. Now, of course, the greatest success comes from when you try something new and it seems really scary and it takes off. And then the feeling that everyone on my team gets from that, our buyers, our design team, is immeasurable because all that hard work, all that risk, all that worry, when it pays off, it's the greatest relief imaginable.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely love that. Um, I'm curious about because there's been, such a transition from in-store shopping to online shopping, but still certain generational elements. Certain generations really like to be in the store. Maybe talk about how do you get the balance right, and also how you can provide maybe a digital presence to some of these in-person experiences that you're creating. You're doing these interesting pop-ups, and there's sort of a party element that's involved in that, which is really cool. But how do you kind of bridge that gap and create that balance between in-person and digital?
So the first thing I'll say is Dillard's is unique as a department store and a retailer in that we are highly focused on brick and mortar.
Mm.
It is really where we start. Um, the internet, our website has been an incredible growth vehicle for us, and I think it really allows an omni-channel experience for our consumer where she can choose to shop us however it works for her. I mean, even myself, I work out of a store most days, I still may shop online in my bed at night. And I may choose to have it shipped to my house, or I may choose to pick it up in the store. But the humans today expect a tremendous amount of flexibility in their shopping experience. And I think that we, by focusing on our stores as much as we do, have been able to really capitalize on that. Whereas many of our peers have backed away from the brick and mortar experience. Um, everything's about reinforcement to me. So if you start off in a store and you see something you really like, and then you read about, so for example, in the Coterie shop, each brand has what we call a plinth that describes the designer and who she is and what the background is. It piques interest, and sometimes you may not pick something up the first day you see it. So you're, like, in curiosity mode. "Okay, that's really interesting. I saw this really cool thing in Dillard's." Then I was online, and I got an email blast for it, or I saw it on Dillard's Instagram, or I saw it on influencers' Instagram, or even the brands, and I'm like, "Oh, wow, that's really interesting. I'm gonna pay more attention." And then the third time, maybe they make a purchase. Maybe they go for it. But to me, the reinforcement that exists between the experience of being both in person and digital, it's just really where it's at. I mean, that got constant reinforcement, and within Dillard's, having the brick and mortar experience and being exposed in so many markets like Abilene, where you're from, or smaller towns, some of those stores are our best in the country. And I think it's because, people want to touch and feel. They want to try it on. They don't, you can look online and think you know what a fabrication's going to be, or think you know how a fit is going to work for you, but you really don't until you bring that product into your home and try it on. I think there's tremendous amount of people that really value the in-person experience of being able to touch, feel, explore, see, try it on, get a sense of what you like and don't like, so that their shopping online becomes more precise, and nobody likes dealing with returns. I mean, we don't as a retailer, I don't as a customer. It's a headache. So I really feel that the in-person experience is where it starts best, and then it gets reinforced throughout the experience of being digital.
Yeah.
And, it's a partnership. It's a partnership that works in tandem. And we see this all the time. Customers, even yesterday when I was in Birmingham for this great new influencer launch, um, they were like texting me the whole time, like, "Oh, I forgot to get this. Can I come back and get that? Oh, I'm going to buy this online. I can't wait for this to launch." I have girlfriends texting me from California saying, "Tell me what I should buy. Like, what's going to fit me and my body type." And they're seeing that because they're seeing the social media presence of the event that happened that was very exciting. They're seeing the imagery that the influencer has put out. They're seeing us post things on our Instagram accounts, and it's all very cyclical. And so I think that experience is just one of the best parts about our company, that we really stand behind the product in our stores and reinforce it online. Additionally, we have products that are only available in stores, and we have products that are only available online. So, it really kind of continues to pique your interest to say, what does Dillard's have in my local store? Or maybe I'm going on vacation. I'm going to be in the Panhandle, and in the Florida Panhandle. And I'm going to go check out the stores there to see if there's something new and exciting. It keeps people kind of coming back and wanting to know what's next.
What's been the response from some of the brands and the individuals like Morgan and Molly and Sophia who you've worked with directly? What's been their response and sort of the impact on their business more broadly? Because I think it's important to note that, they still have their separate business, right? This is a collaboration.
Yeah. We don't want to take away from that. I would say that it kind of goes back to any vendor I work with. There's always the fear of taking away business from something else, whether that's your own D2C business or whether that's another retailer you work with. And in my entire history of working at Dillard's, I have never seen the expansion of being in the right accounts be a detriment.
Mm.
Certainly, if you've got an account that's going to be discounting your merchandise or not presenting it well, I would steer away from that. But the additive growth and exposure points only helps the brand. And Buru, for example, is not available to shop in any store in the United States unless you happen to be in one of Morgan's pop-ups. If there's not really a permanent presence anywhere else. And I think there are a lot of people that want to see what that product is. So if anything, I think
Well, and especially in her case, because the fabrics and the textiles are absolutely gorgeous, and it's hard to get an appreciation for those online.
totally. And so I think we are just reinforcing their message and exposing people to the brand. We don't buy every single piece in all of these girls' collections. So, we're exposing our customer base to their brand, and we would encourage for them to go on that brand's website and explore and shop too. For us, it's just adding exposure, getting people excited. And our consumer at Dillard's is extremely product centric, meaning she's less brand loyal than you would think, and she really responds to great products, so she will try new brands. Whereas other places, the consumer has to really know the brand before she's gonna test it. Ours does not. Our consumer is extremely interested in what piques her interest, what gets her captivated. So I think, we've been able to expose a tremendous amount of new customers to these girls' brands. And also within the Coterie shop in particular, we built an incredible community where we bring the different designers together. We just had an event in Charlotte 2 weeks ago where all of the designers came and we had a panel discussion with a fabulous podcast host, much like yourself. And we did it in an art gallery that was just gorgeous, kind of in a great spot in town, and bringing everybody together. We had a wonderful dinner. We've really created a community and we fostered, communication between each one of these young designers and encouraged them to work together through problems or talk to each other. And we're here too to answer questions they may have. And we had a lot of conversations at the dinner table about the tariffs and how that was going to impact everybody and what the solutions might look like and how we could navigate this hurdle. And, I think that that's been one of the beautiful parts of the relationship and the entire department, as well as the community that we've built.
I'm thinking as you're talking about all of this, that sometimes people can let competition get in the way of collaborations and sort of the innovation that can come through those collaborations. Maybe talk about how you think about competition, how you can understand what the competition's doing without letting it completely overshadow your goals and objectives.
Yeah, this is so twofold because my advice to vendors on competition is almost different than the way I approach
Mm,
competition. Um, I'm trying to figure out how to word this so it doesn't come across as being cocky in any way because I that is not who I am. But I pay less attention to our competitors than you might think. And the people that I look to as a competitor are not traditional department stores. I look at new concepts that are emerging. I love to follow like Shop Cooper or Tuckernuck or people like that that don't have any stores and they're really online. But I feel like I'm constantly looking for what's new in the industry and trying to follow
mm,
that. And it's a lot less about looking at my traditional competitors. Now, don't get me wrong. Like when I went to Charlotte, I was walking the mall and checking out what was happening in our other, the other headers. But I tend to be significantly more inspired and look as competition to the new formats that are coming into existence. Or if somebody's built a really cool new retail concept in Atlanta, we have really awesome markets like Krog Street Market, Pont City Market, the West Side. We have a lot of developments. I look there far more, and they are competition. It's just not your classic competition, or even another retailer that's doing something really interesting in a completely different area. Maybe it's the home space, or even tech. I get more inspired by thinking about their strategy. What are they thinking? What are they trying to do? What are they doing that's
mm.
different? And that's where I get most inspired. And then I would say when it comes to brands, competition is the greatest form of flattery. It challenges us to stay forward thinking, and that's a good thing. Because when you sit still, like I said earlier, you rust when you rest. You know, people can catch up quickly. So you have to keep moving and evolving. And that's what the best brands in the world do. Think about designer brands. They're on the forefront of something new constantly. They're not doing the same thing only for their entire existence. So competition is good. It keeps us moving forward. And in anything, there's the grind for the constant ever changing goalpost.
Right.
I think that keeps people stimulated, intrigued. It keeps your customer interested. If you stay in one place, what I have seen from brands that do that too far often than not are that they start catering to a different audience than who they initially were trying to cater to. So the customer moves. She's not staying right here. She moves. And if you're staying right here, you're probably now catering to a different audience that might have been a little behind the trend curve than what you once were targeting. So you have to keep moving. And then also, I find that if you find somebody's doing something in the industry that you really admire, hopefully it's not exactly in your space, working with them in a partnership or a collaboration is a great move for everyone to kind of bring attention to the fact that you feel a common synergy, that there's something inspiring about what they're doing and you want to be a part of it. I also went last week to an event with Wheezy Towels that is founded by a dear friend of mine and her partner, and then also Addison Bay. And that's a very unlikely duo in some ways
Right.
because a towel brand and Addison Bay's, amazing recreational line of clothing, you might think, how does that partner together? But as two young entrepreneurs, if you will, two groups of female entrepreneurs, they were inspired by one another. They both represented some traits like color or target audience or price point being kind of accessible to many people. And they came together into a really creative force that I love to see. And it keeps me interested as a shopper because I'm a shopper, a fan, and a consumer. We also carry Addison Bay. So, I love seeing that. And I encourage them to do that. That we have nothing to do with that partnership, but I love seeing it because it keeps it interesting. And so I think if you approach competition as an opportunity and as a challenge, it can be a really great thing.
So we've covered a lot of topics, and I think one that is also really important is the fact that Dillard still has a Southern sensibility. It is, you have locations in California and a few places in the country that are not technically the South, but for the most part, you're a Southern department store. Talk about what makes that unique and why that's relevant as you think about these innovations.
Absolutely. I think there's so much excitement happening in the South. Um, COVID threw accelerant on something that was already bubbling up as we were starting to see more designers emerge from unusual locations like Nashville or Charlotte or Atlanta. Texas has been huge. It's been really in Florida, of course. It has been very inspiring to see the shift and the change in culture. And Dillard's has always been Southern based. It's what we're known for. Our customer loves color. She loves to dress up. She's constantly buying new outfits for any occasion in her life, whether that's a PTA meeting or she's going on vacation. She loves to buy new clothes and wants to look good for every occasion. And I greatly admire that so much about the Southern consumer that she wants to show up looking her best at all times. And as we saw COVID really shift our population away from some of the bigger, more urban cities, New York and Chicago and Los Angeles, that were kind of always in the industry where the action was happening and where the newness was coming from. Like I said, it threw accelerant. COVID threw accelerant on that because so many creative minds started thinking about, I could do this. This doesn't exist the way I want it. How can I make this interesting? And we saw mothers that were just stay-at-home moms start brands and
Uh-huh.
come up with like the coolest, most innovative, newest ideas, and they inspired others. And then they started creating their own brands of whatever that product category was. And now today, what we're seeing is the majority of the new lines I launch are not coming from the traditional kind of fashion meccas. They are coming from female founders many times, some male founders, but they're not typically in sort of the fashion meccas that we've always established. And I find that to be so inspiring. These are people who live in the areas where we live. They go to the events we go to. They're going to the Kentucky Derby and they're doing all the fun things. They're at the Masters. And to see that they're designing into the customer base that we've always had has been left the door just so open for us. And the opportunity is so vast and so exciting. So I do think that the shift in Southern culture becoming so popular has been tremendous for our company and for us and has just made me so excited about the potential for the future.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And it is so in the spirit of what, we learn at the Southern Sea and, that we experience with each other as part of that environment. So I am so grateful to you for taking the time to be here today. This is an amazing conversation. I'm so excited to learn all about how you are thinking about this innovation at Dillard's. It's really, really inspiring.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm so glad to be here and I could talk forever. So,
Well, I'll have you back.
so thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Okay, friend, isn't it interesting how Alexandra's success at Dillard's really mirrors what we're doing here at She Said, She Said? This idea of bringing fresh ideas into an organization through collaboration. That's exactly what our partnership with the Southern Sea has been all about. And frankly, it's what this entire podcast is about, bringing in incredible voices and different perspectives and points of view that help make all of us a little smarter. So I'd love to hear your takeaway from today's conversation. Maybe it's time to find your own collaboration partner who brings something new to the table. Truly, some of the best ideas come when we mix up tradition with those fresh perspectives. And I loved how Alexandra really illustrated that today. Be sure to drop me a note on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn about what really clicked for you today. I love hearing your thoughts, and I always love hearing from you. You'll find me at Laura Cox Kaplan. And a quick reminder about our Eric Javits Summer Accessories deal. Be sure to use promo code She Said for a full 20% off of your purchase at ericjavits.com. It is truly the perfect time for Mother's Day shopping. You will not want to delay. All right, friend, until next week, I'm Laura Cox Kaplan. Great collaborations can truly be the secret to success. Thanks for spending time with me today on She Said, She Said podcast. And remember, She Said podcast is a weekly production of She Said Media. Take care.